He walked into the courtroom in handcuffs, confused, scared, and already judged by the color of his skin. But what no one expected was the look on the judge's face. This wasn't just another trial. The man standing accused wasn't a stranger. At all, he was someone from the judge's past who once shared childhood laughter on the same playground. Yet now, the only thing between him and freedom was a system that had already decided who he was. How could fate bring two lives back together in a moment like this, and what would be revealed when truth and prejudice collided? Marcus had always worked hard, kept his head down, and believed that if he did everything right, the world would eventually be fair to him. He grew up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, but his dreams were anything but small. Working two jobs, supporting his family, and mentoring young kids on weekends, Marcus carried himself with quiet resilience. In his community, he was known for kindness, carrying groceries for elders, keeping an eye on troubled teens, always putting others before himself. However, in a society that often saw only his skin first, Marcus was more likely to be viewed as a threat before being seen as a man. On that morning, Marcus's focus was simple: get to work on time, make rent, keep life steady. He had no idea that before the day was over, his life would crash into a courtroom and into the gaze of someone who knew him long before the world had stamped its judgments. The day began like dozens before it, but suspicion had a way of following Marcus everywhere. Passing a storefront, he felt the sting of eyes trailing him, the clerk's sharp stare, heavy with doubt. He ignored it until a police cruiser slowed beside him. A brief stop became a search. A search became an accusation. In minutes, he was told he matched the description of a robbery suspect. His pockets held nothing but a folded resume and a bus pass. Still, none of it mattered. To the officers, Marcus was guilty of fitting into a narrative they'd already written. He protested, but his words only drew harder stares, shorter tempers, and a ride in the back of a squad car. To strangers passing by, it looked like justice was working. It felt like a life built brick by brick for Marcus, now being swept away. Sitting in a holding cell, he realized this wasn't about proving what he hadn't done, it was about surviving. A system that never needed proof. The fear in his chest grew heavier with every hour that slipped past. When the trial finally began, Marcus lifted his eyes to see the judge. Expecting indifference, he instead caught a flicker of something else: recognition. The man staring down from the bench wasn't just a judge. He was a friend from childhood, a boy who once ran through the same cracked sidewalks, laughed under the same sun, dreamed of the same better future. But as arguments began, Marcus wondered, would that bond from the past matter at all, or would the system crush him regardless? The courtroom buzzed with tightly wound silence as the prosecution spun its story. They painted Marcus as reckless, dangerous danger wrapped in a suit. Evidence was weak, timelines unmatched, but unspoken bias filled the gaps. He felt stripped of humanity, reduced to nothing more than a profile that fit the accusation. The judge's gaze lingered, caught between memory and duty. One boy had become a man cloaked in authority. The other now stood shackled and accused. Fate had drawn two divergent paths into the same cramped space. Marcus's silent plea hung heavy. Will you see me for who I am, or what the world says I must be? The prosecutor's final words landed like a stone. The defendant should be held fully accountable. The weight of inevitability pressed into Marcus's chest. The gavel lifted, his future balanced on the edge of a single sound. The gavel struck. Insufficient evidence, case dismissed. Relief flooded Marcus, but it came laced with bitterness. That courtroom win wasn't the end of his sentence, it was just survival. His name carried suspicion, his story forever scarred. He walked out free, but not whole. He knew what this moment meant, despite a childhood connection and shaky evidence. The system had nearly swallowed him whole. Back in his neighborhood, Marcus became more than just himself. His experience was a mirror held up to a reality faced by countless others, innocent people caught in a web of bias strong enough to choke. Futures before they began, Marcus chose to tell his story not for attention but for truth. Because this wasn't one man's trial, it was a glimpse into a machine dressed up as justice, a system where racism doesn't always shout, it whispers through paperwork, lingers in assumptions, and stamps its power in verdicts. So, how many lives must be broken or nearly destroyed before society demands something better? And when the next Marcus walks into a courtroom, will we keep looking away or will we finally decide to act?